So don't get too excited. Buenas tardes a todos. That's about the extent of my Spanish. I can understand, but not speak so much. So I can't hear any feedback, so can you hear me? Yes, okay. So I've been in waste management for 20 years. I've seen the public side and the private side. Now I work for the public side. How do I change the slides? Okay. So I work for an organization called Municipal Waste Europe. The members of Municipal Waste Europe are national associations which group municipalities, either the unit which deals with waste management or the public waste management company. And in every country, that public waste management company is organized differently. It might do the whole service by itself. It might only manage the installation, so landfill, incineration plant, sorting plant, or no sorting plant at all. Oh, it's disappeared. Okay. No, just back a minute. In other countries, they are public-private cooperations within the public company for different reasons. I'm not going to go into the financial aspects today. I'm just going to describe to you what's happening in terms of waste legislation in Europe today and what we are doing. So we have 17 members from 16 member states, and our job is basically to uphold the idea of services of general interest. This does not mean that a service of general interest has to be supplied by the public authority or the public company. But it does mean that they are responsible, and it means that they have to have the control and the evaluation to make sure that the service is delivered correctly, according to the national and to the European law. So this is what we uphold. Oh, no. I'll ask you. Okay, next one, please. I'll just say next. So last year, we had a revision of all the European waste legislation. I don't know how much you know about waste legislation, so I'll just go through the head titles. The Waste Framework Directive sets the rules for all of the other waste legislation. After the Waste Framework Directive, we have the Packaging Directive, the Waste Electrical and Electronic Goods Directive, batteries, the Landfill Directive, and all of this manages investment and management of, or should, of waste in Europe. We're mostly talking about municipal waste, so household and similar, when we're looking at the targets set in the Waste Framework Directive. Today, we don't actually know how much commercial and industrial waste there is, because nobody really is measuring it in a similar way, or some countries are not measuring it at all. No, you better go back just one slide. I'm still on the first, no, next one, yeah. So the new waste package has set higher recycling targets. We've gone from 22.5% recycling for plastics to 50. Just one example. There is now a more demanding calculation for what we call recycled waste. Until today, different countries were measuring that differently. They still are, because the new calculation is not in effect yet. But many countries were collecting separate packaging, for example. And when it is delivered to the sorting plant, then they were counting all of the quantity as recycled. But in many cases, only 30% of that quantity was actually recycled. And 70% after sorting would go to incineration or to landfill. And if it goes to landfill, which is not managed, as happens in a lot of the southern countries, and particularly on islands, then it ends up in the sea. So this is something that we need to manage. So with the higher recycling targets and the new calculation method, which is after the sorting plant, we have a lot of work to do. Our next target is that we have to be at 10% or less landfilling by 2035. The countries which have very high landfilling today can ask for 5 more years to 2040 to reach the 10%. And this means of the waste that I create in my country in 2035, I'm only allowed to put 10% maximum in the landfill. The other obligation we have in this new waste package is to collect packaging waste separately at source, so we must have a system of separate collection bins, the way that we decide in our country to organize that. And there is an obligation by 2027 to collect bio-waste separately. Many countries are already starting to do this. In the south, this is the easiest way to reach the recycling targets. It's the cheapest and the easiest. You know why? Because 50 to 60% of our waste bag, the mixed waste, is food waste. Yes. Organic waste. Food waste. Organic waste. It's not because we in the south and the east that we throw a lot of food away. It's because we eat a lot of fruit and vegetables. And it's all the peelings. And it's very easy to collect those separately. Currently, I live in Malta. They started separate collection of organic waste 31st of October last year. In 1 month, they had about 50% of the population separating, and in 3 months, 75% of the population separating the organic waste. If you make it easy, everybody will do it. Then you make compost, and you have organic farming. And improve the soil, so when it rains, you're filling up your water table. You're not sending all the rainwater into the sea. So, next please. So basically, waste management does not only mean managing your waste, it means creating new raw materials and improving your potential to increase biodiversity. And if you improve biodiversity, then you are directly absorbing CO2 out of the atmosphere and affecting climate change. So let's look at the money that is around to help implementation, because we spent 7 years revising this legislation. But after that, if the legislation stays on the table, on paper, and we don't use it to implement it, what's the point of having good legislation? So, in a minute I will tell you what we are doing about it as Municipal Waste Europe. But as well as that, right now, 2 key pieces of legislation are being either revised or created at European level, which will be the backing behind more investment in not only waste management, but all sectors. One of them is the ERDFCF, which means the Structural and Cohesion Fund regulation. It's the first time that all regional funds are being regulated in one piece of legislation, because they have realized that it must be coordinated, so that the same rules apply to all regional funds. As far as waste legislation is concerned, because of the new waste package, the EU realized that too much money was going to solutions for waste management, which were not helping the countries to get closer to the recycling targets. So this regulation has an exclusion for investment in mixed waste. It will fund prevention plans, repair and reuse networks, separate collection systems, with everything that means, including communication, and sorting plants and recycling plants. When you talk about sorting plants and recycling plants, most of that investment is private. It's not public. Sustainable finance legislation is also now in an advanced stage of development. This orders in a taxonomy the most sustainable to the least sustainable investments. Not only sectors, but the type of work that each company is doing or activity. Again, the order of priority for investments and for sustainability follows the waste hierarchy. You tell me if I'm going too long, yes? I'm speaking a bit slow because of the language. Again, mixed waste treatment is considered the least sustainable within the circular economy aim. Because although we gain back energy from waste to energy, for example, and it is necessary, there is a capacity gap in Europe today, what the circular economy is aiming at first is materials. We have to gain back as many materials as possible, and when we have done that, then we can regain the energy from what is left. But even if you look at the plastics debate, so only 9% of plastics which were created since 1950 have been recycled. The discussion today is, even from the industry itself, is to make all plastic fully recyclable by 2030 or by 2050, depending on which companies or groups that you're talking about. Today, because we cannot ship our packaging waste to China, to Malaya, to Africa, because when China closed its borders in January 2018, many countries started sending it to Thailand, Malaya, Indonesia, Africa, but we have a new international legislation now making it hazardous waste. So you cannot send packaging waste which has been collected separately to non-OECD countries unless you are sending it as hazardous waste, which would make it very expensive to do. That means that we have huge amounts of untreated packaging waste in Europe because we don't have enough sorting plants. The sorting plants we do have are being burnt down because of lithium batteries inside the packaging. So we have this new problem to contend with as well. And the incineration plants that we do have, waste to energy, cannot put so much plastic in at one time because it's too hot. It will damage the plant. So we have to think of other solutions, including eco-design, to improve the recyclability of that material. Next, please. So in practice, if we are looking at a country with high landfilling, what do we need? We need separate collection system and investment in infrastructure. Of course, I didn't write it, but it goes without saying, or it should. You have to start with communication. You build your system, but you communicate with the public at every step. The public doesn't only want to know how to separate their waste. They want to know where it goes and what happens to it, and then they will continue. We need sorting infrastructure in these countries. It doesn't matter if it's public or private. A very, very good combination at this stage of the sorting and recycling infrastructure is to bring in the producers so that the producers and the recyclers co-invest. Because the recycler gets the material, they know the technology to turn it into a secondary raw material, and the producer wants it to make the new product. This kind of high landfilling country also needs repair and reuse networks. Repair and reuse networks address bulky waste. So they address the fridges, the washing machines, the televisions, the clothes, the sofas, the beds, the cupboards, which are going to landfill today. They bring in employment to people who cannot have another job because it's unskilled labor. And of course, they bring new life to these products so they don't go to landfill or incineration. And what I like to say is that we throw away our grandmother's cupboard, which is pure wood, and we go to IKEA to buy something that's going to break in 5 years. So it's better to upcycle rather than to go and buy something which is disposable. It's part of the change of culture. build and buy for long term. Next, please. Okay, so all of this waste management is in the context of the circular economy. And the circular economy, to achieve it from a waste perspective, we need to regain materials. Now, the new Commission is coming in with a European Green Deal. This has also been tabled as an idea by a pan-European political group called DM25, and they call it the Green New Deal for Europe. But the principles behind it are the same. It's create a system, enable funding to business, and implement. The Green New Deal, or the Green Deal under the new Commission, is going to focus on, for the circular economy, on textiles, working more on the plastic strategy and on the bioeconomy. So waste is necessary, and it's an issue in all of those three topics. It will focus on zero pollution. This is the other pillar, so it's got three pillars. And within that, on clean air, clean water, and non-toxic chemicals. And the third pillar is biodiversity. So a strategy for biodiversity, sustainable food, which means sustainable agriculture, and preservation of rural areas and forests. So if you look at biodiversity as by itself, they need our compost. So we have to get that organic waste and do something good with it. And then we can deliver on pillar 3. Next, please. So I said we have the law, but if we leave it as a law and we don't do something with it, then we haven't progressed. So I went to our Municipal Waste Europe members and I said this, and they agreed that we will take some action. Normally, European associations don't do this kind of thing. And we started to work together with a relatively new tool. It was launched in 2017 by the Commission, called TAIEX EIR Peer-to-Peer. TAIEX, many of you maybe know. It's a funding line, but normally for countries which want to become a member of Europe. But they've made it only for the 28 European countries. EIR means Environmental Implementation Review. And peer-to-peer is the tool. It means that you use one municipality, in our case, who has experience, to teach another municipality what they learnt from their experience. Okay, next, please. So last year we did 2 projects. Ljubljana, from 2003 until, let's say, 2011, implemented a separate collection and sorting system and took their landfill from 90% to less than 10% in about 5-6 years. Today they are below 5%. And Évora, which is a region of Portugal, had a separate collection system, a sorting system, and a landfill. But they didn't know what to do next to improve the recycling targets and to reduce the landfilling. So we made a project so that Ljubljana, which is a similar municipal structure, governance structure as a country, to Évora, to look at the system that exists and to analyze where the problems might be and to find solutions. And this was very successful. At the end of the week, because we were there for 5 days, we came up with a plan of implementation, so how you can change it. And then they went away, a very effective company, public company, and put this plan into effect. And just now, this September, 1 year later, the team from Ljubljana went back to do an update visit to see where they are and what help they need now. Now, these projects don't have a lot of money in them. The Commission only pays for travel and accommodation. So in my view, this is a step 1. It's the planning stage. You see what the problem is, you propose a solution, but then we need to find the money to implement. We did a second project with Belgium and Denmark. This one was for repair and reuse networks. From the south, we don't think the north has any problems. But Denmark was not able to fix their legislation to allow public-private cooperation in collecting bulky waste and creating centers which could employ socially disadvantaged people to repair and then resell.
Sorry, what do you mean with reduce networks?
So repair and reuse network. So repair, you know. Reuse network is something like Petit Rien here. So you have a private organization or an NGO. It can be both. Who organize the collection of furniture, it could be textiles, and they have centers where they sort everything, and they employ people normally who are unskilled, and they teach them how to repair. And then they have a shop, and they sell. Now, what the Danish learnt from Belgium is that in the Belgian law, they made it possible for the private company or the NGO to have a contract with the municipality to be able to collect either directly from the household or from the civic amenity site, so the collection point where the citizen is free any time in the year to take what they don't need. And then they take this and they take it to their sorting facilities, they repair it and they sell it. The other thing they learned from Belgium is that because the government wants to promote this, and because these reuse repair centers are employing people who are on unemployment benefit, they pay 50% of the wage. And this makes it possible. And it's much cheaper for the government. Next, please. So I told you already that we did the follow-up with Ljubljana and Evora. Just now this September as well, I made a project between two producer responsibility organizations for packaging waste. So for those who don't know, this is like a mediator between the packaging producer and the municipality. They take money from the producer because the producer has an obligation to look after the waste that they put on the market, the products that become waste, and the municipality who has the obligation to collect. So Fost Plus has quite a good system. It's the system in Europe which communicates and coordinates best with the municipalities. And so we use them as an example for Malta, which is, Malta has two producer responsibility organizations. Belgium has only one. It's much easier to work with one than it is with two or more. And basically, they did the same thing as we did in Evora. Greenpack Malta came to Belgium, saw the situation here and the setup and the law. And then Fost Plus and Interraffel, which is one of our members from Flanders, of all the municipalities in Flanders, came to Malta to see what are the problems and to tell them what they do here in more detail. And now in Malta they will follow on to change the parts of the law that are necessary to change to make it easier to cooperate with the municipalities, and they will improve the recycling bins network. Then we have Kalmar, which is Estonia, and Kalmar is Sweden, and Pärnu, which is Estonia. Sweden was teaching Estonia also this month how they are organized. So how the municipalities and the public waste management companies, both countries have public waste management companies, communicate with national government to make the waste management plan, and then either the regional or directly to the local authority, the local waste management plan, and then how they implement and how they get money to be able to implement. Because this is what they needed to learn in Estonia. The next one, please. Yeah. So next, so either this month or next month, I will write some more projects. One of them is between Parma in Italy and Porto in Portugal. Porto already has separate collection of organic waste from all of the big producers. So food processing companies, restaurants, hotels. But they have not found the right solution for separate collection from households. It can be difficult when you have big apartment buildings, because it's difficult to reach the people, it's difficult to keep organic waste in a hot country inside, so they need to find the right solution. And this will be that project. There's another one between Malta and the Catalonia Waste Agency, because the Catalonia Waste Agency has a good system of integrated waste management, and Malta still needs to learn a lot about that, so this is that exchange. And then the third one is between Greece and Malta, where Greece has the only extended producer responsibility system in Europe for construction and demolition waste. So they will teach Malta, which has a huge booming construction industry at the moment and a lot of waste, how to deal with it. Next, please.
No, it was quite interesting about the construction and demolition waste.
Yeah. Yes, you can ask a question.
Nosotros llevamos 11 años trabajando con un proyecto. 11.
See? 11.
They are 11 years working in a project
Para plantar 4,5 millones de metros cuadrados de un árbol australiano que se llama miletia.
to
Arbol?
plant a
Tree.
from Australia called Miletia.
Okay.
Para con eso producir energía.
To try to produce biomass energy.
From the tree.
Well, you produce the tree after you you do
Okay.
biomass.
But plant hemp.
Sí. 11 años.
They are 11 years.
Plant hemp tomorrow.
Se construye la empresa y se le entrega a los 3 años.
They create the company.
Se le regala a una asociación de familias de Fuerteventura que tiene niños con deficiencia para que puedan trabajar sus niños.
They are working.
Solo trabajaría 100%, o sea, 90% niños para familias con niños con deficiencia. Solo el 10%.
That's a-
¿Vale? 11 años. Y dicen los técnicos que Europa no permite autorizarlo porque es un árbol australiano. Cambiaría, en vez de ser un desierto, Fuerteventura tendría un bosque de 4,5 millones de metros cuadrados y utilizaría el 100% de las aguas depuradas. El quinto contenedor, además gratis, se llevaría a las empresas para que dieran el contenedor de residuo orgánico que haría falta. No se utiliza, estaría prohibido utilizar desalar agua, por lo tanto no gastaría energía.
The idea from the government is to forbid the
Desalination.
Y el problema de los purines,
They have a big problem of
de los
the
purines de los
pig slurry.
animales.
Pig slurry.
Oh, yeah.
We have one of the big farm in Canarias in 3,000
Pigs.
pigs.
Por lo tanto, quitarías el residuo de las granjas, el residuo de las
They
fábricas.
transform that waste from
El
factories,
problema de
from
no,
pig
sería
slurry.
cero vertido al mar, se utilizaría toda el agua para hacerlo, y solo el problema parece ser que es una planta que, como no es endémica a Canarias, habría que traerla de Australia. Son 11 años, casi 12, para pedir permiso para algo que es, eso sí que es singular.
But I'm going to come back to what I said in the beginning. You can do your whole project with the water and the organic waste. You can even do anaerobic digestion, because for the pig slurry, you need to put it in anaerobic digestion, not in composting.
Para el residuo de los cerdos puedes hacer un tema anaeróbico.
Yeah.
We have different
You
solutions.
put it in the desert. You know they're doing it in Egypt.
Cuando se muere un animal en Canarias, cuando se muere un animal,
Yes. No, I'm not talking about animal byproducts.
sí, para desalinizarlo, para hacerlo,
Yeah.
tienes que traerlo a Zaragoza,
Ah.
It's true. The problem,
But that's, I'm not
legislation
talking about
they
that.
have
que es
Yeah.
lo mismo.
when
que-
when a pig dies in a farm, they have to
in an exothermic container,
Yeah.
it goes to Zaragoza.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine the cost of that?
Entiendo su trabajo y que haga normativo,
Is it?
pero
Yeah, no, I have practical experience as well, but basically they would need to have an anaerobic, an animal byproduct treatment plant, which normally is an incinerator, the same one that you have in a hospital, in one island of the Canaries. You need it in one island, and if it's certified, then it can deal with all of that. But that's nothing to do with planting and energy.
There are some issues there because they are also they are.
no, yo lo que estoy diciendo es a la idea que ella pone, por ejemplo, Malta o Parma con Porto.
No, they have similar problems.
Es una isla, ¿no? Más pequeña, ¿no?
Malta.
Yes.
Para poder dar una solución circular.
Yes.
Para poder
Yes.
dar una
That's why we're doing
They
it.
would like to
Nosotros-
participate.
Nosotros,
in
oh,
yeah.
such a program.
este marco regulador vale para
Yes.
continente y cerca al continente.
So next
Pero
week,
para poder acogerme a una
I'm going to
a una
Corfu.
de estas características,
Next week I'm going to Corfu because we have almost an emergency situation there, and we have part of a solution. And we will do, it's not in part of TAIEX because it happened too quickly. So I'm just going and taking some other experts there to talk about the solutions. They have a group of citizens because the municipality was not allowed to bring solutions legally because the national level did not give the rights to the municipality. So a group of citizens, maybe 10 years ago, started green points to collect organic waste, packaging wastes, bulky waste, and there is a little bit of upcycling. And today there are 22 of these. But we have problems of, let's say, unclean tendering processes in Greece. And it's not just Greece, it's a southern problem. And this island, which has something like 70, under 100,000 inhabitants, less, they want to give it a plant, a mechanical biological plant, mechanical biological treatment, which will treat 30,000 tons of waste per year for 74 million euro. 74 million euro. The 100,000 ton plant in Madrid cost 11, maybe 12.
It's crazy. We have a lot.
European funds, huh?
No, it's crazy.
Structural funds.
Crazy. We have some startups with solutions that we are talking of a cost of 15 euros ton.
Yes, I know.
Not in Balearic Islands. We have some corruption 210 euros ton.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah. But this is what I'm talking about when I talk about investment capabilities at a lower scale as well. Because something which costs so little, you can't get the money for it. Because all the tendering process and all of the structural and cohesion fund process is geared to give millions, tens, hundreds of millions. Yeah.
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 But it's because of that we have the program live, up to 1 million euros for a small pilot innovative project.
But that's the pilot. I'm talking about implementation. You know, the pilot's been done. The technique has been proven. You can't use it. So yes, if you would, we can talk and we can make a TAIEX peer-to-peer for Fuerteventura. I'd be very happy to come. Next.
Excuse me, what is a bit bizarre is that you use grants in order to finance something which is expected to provide profits.
No, this is public implementation. This is not profit-driven.
No, TAIEX is a capacity building.
Yes,
It's knowledge transfer.
No, I'm talking about the public support through the regional funds.
Oh yeah, but this happens all the time.
This is you're using grants in order to support an initiative.
But this is the
which expected
purpose.
to be remunerative.
this is the purpose of the structural and cohesion funds, though, because they are there to fund environmental and not just roads, infrastructure projects. So they pay for roads. Roads are also, when they have tolls, they're profit driven. But this is the way that Europe is set up. This is not my fault, and I can't comment. Yeah. It's to enable those countries, supposedly the cohesion funds, to reach a higher GDP to match the northern countries. It hasn't worked.
We are going to finish in 2 minutes.
Yes, yeah, this is it. So I have one more project that is coming up which might interest those of you who work for local authorities in probably March next year, where we will take the learnings from the Danish-Belgian project on the repair and reuse networks, and we will make a big workshop where more people can come from around Europe and learn about how to set up a repair and reuse network and how much waste they will avoid going to landfill by doing it. And I think that's it. Oh, well, anyway, we've said all of this already. It's the new financing period, and we need smaller groups of money to be spent, not just big groups of money. Thank you very much.